Subscribe now. EU Debates.
As always, let me start off this press conference with a thought for the people of Ukraine. While we're aware that the Eurogroup discussed the economic consequences of the war that has been inflicted upon them, we're also very, very conscious of their human suffering at this terrible time. That said, let me say a word about where we are economically. It's now very clear that the economic toll of this war is worldwide. High prices and disruption to food supplies are rippling across the world with very serious consequences for the most vulnerable in our societies. And of course, the euro area is facing these challenges too. However, we do have the resilience to face into this new shock. Savings that were built up during the pandemic, healthy balance sheets in the financial sector, and the flexibility and agility of our economy can and will see us through this challenge. There will be an impact on growth in the short term, and the high price of energy and other commodities on world markets does mean that as a continent our purchasing power has suffered. So our discussion today showed that many member states are indeed cushioning the blow for their citizens, especially for the most vulnerable households. The Commission presented to the Eurogroup the package it issued today, and the European Central Bank outlined how it is responding to higher inflation. The Eurogroup has consistently emphasised that our fiscal strategy should be agile and responsive to unfolding events. This approach remains all the more relevant as heightened uncertainty needs sufficient flexibility. That's why the Commission's announcement on keeping the General Escape Clause activated for another year is an important development. At the same time, this decision doesn't change our objective of progressively shifting our fiscal stance from supportive this year to neutral next year. And there is broad agreement amongst ministers that we need to strive to continue to make our budgetary policy and decisions as sustainable as possible in this uncertain environment. So, we will be following up on the discussion today in more depth in the next couple of months. The policy trade-offs are very complex, and we will take time necessary to get the policy balance right, and we will aim to adopt a statement on the budgetary stance for next year in our July Eurogroup meeting. On the subject of fiscal policy, we discussed the updated draft budget plans of Portugal and Germany. We welcomed the Commission opinions on them, and we shared the Commission's positive assessment. And as usual, we've adopted a short Eurogroup statement reflecting our views. We also today discussed the candidacies for the upcoming vacancy of the Managing Director of the European Stability Mechanism. The purpose of having this discussion within the Eurogroup was to assess the level of support that candidates receive and to play a role in facilitating the actual appointment which will take place at the ESM Board of Governors. Following a brief presentation by my colleagues from Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands and Portugal of their nominees, we then held an indicative vote. We held 2 rounds of voting. The Netherlands have decided to withdraw their candidate. That means we now have 3 candidates in this contest: Marco Butti, Pierre Gramagna and Zhao Liao. We will continue further informal consultations with a view then to reaching an agreement at the ESM Board of Governors meeting on the 16th of June. Also today, we continued our discussions in inclusive format to discuss the draft work plan to complete the banking union, building on the special meeting we held earlier this month and on much work done in the high-level working group. We had a full discussion on my proposal for a stepwise and time-bound work plan. And the meeting we had this evening fully met my expectations regarding our discussion. What is on the table is very finely balanced, based on 4 policy areas, 2 phases and a political checkpoint. I have to acknowledge that differences of views remain. This is what I would expect at this point in the process. Nonetheless, reaching agreement would be beneficial. It would send a sense of commitment at an important point and indicate that we've aimed and have been successful in reaching a fair balance for all parties. We'll work hard in the time ahead to set the path for the future of this vital and common project, and we'll re-engage in this again in June to find an agreement. So I'll continue to reflect on all the arguments that I heard today on banking union, and I'll engage with all ministers and do my very best to help reach a balanced compromise. Paolo.